What if you had the key to activate your very own cash machine on demand? Welcome to the Next Level Influence Show. I'm Melanie Benson. I'm the host of Amplify Your Success.
And I'm Samantha Riley, host of the Thought Leaders Business Lab podcast. And this is our weekly show for experts and business leaders who are influencing people's decisions to make a greater impact and shatter their revenue goals in the process.
You know, we're going to have to get like a sound effect that we can like shattering those revenue goals. We're going to have some fun with that, right?
Let's do that. Okay. I'm on it, Melanie.
Get on that. All right. Well, hi, everybody. I'm excited for our topic today on literally how do we economy proof our business? How do we make sure that we're not falling prey to the world around us? And here's my take on it. As entrepreneurs, I think we are uniquely wired. We are uniquely designed to be able to create any level of success we have. But what gets in the way is a lot of bad programming, a lot of limited thinking, maybe even a lot of fear. And Sam, you and I were talking in the green room a little bit. Like, we've both been through several recessions. We've been through really challenging times. We've been through major industry meltdowns. And here I am 21 years later, and you're probably even, I think you're a little more than that.
Yep.
Yeah. Right about the same. And we've made it through. And so my experience was very different in this last one as we entered into what we all know as the pandemic. But the first two were brutal for me. I started my business just before 9/11. Not a good time to start a business. Didn't see that coming. No, nor did anyone.
No one saw that coming.
Yeah. We couldn't plan that. We hit that credit crisis. A lot of people knew that one was coming. I was not prepared for it. It almost completely destroyed my business. And if I'm being really honest, those first two, I don't think I was mature enough or wise enough to really understand who you need to be to recession proof or to economy proof your business. But this last one, as we entered into it, I was like, I know what to do now. I knew how to be the person.
I've done that.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So I want to kick this off with the power of our decisions. And actually, it really doesn't even matter where we're at in our business. We can be just wanting to grow. We could be in the middle of some kind of economic upheaval. The power of our decisions in those moments. I made the decision, as I knew we were getting into this pandemic, that I was going to thrive. I was not going to let this impact me. I knew in every fiber of my being, I could turn the cash on demand. I could create any level of success I wanted, but it was going to be my energy, my enthusiasm, my clarity, my resourcefulness, my commitment that was going to be the fuel of that decision. So I don't know, what's your take on economy proofing businesses?
Absolutely. So I guess my situation was a little bit different in that I opened my very first business in a recession. And so for me, it was you just get in there, you make it happen super fast. When you're in a recession, I feel like you need to move a lot faster because you need to pay attention to the cues around you. And we're going to talk more about this later. But I guess when we came out of that recession, our business thrived and grew so quickly. So I was very, very lucky because I didn't really think about it when I opened the business in the recession, right? It was just whatever, we'll just do it. But then in hindsight, realizing how lucky we were to get those lessons, I guess, and to always be able to use them in the times after that. And, there's things to remember, there is still the same amount of money in the world. When there's a recession, there's still the same amount of money. It's just going to different places. And I think that not getting caught up in there is no money, because that's a straight out lie. It's a very limiting belief. So, really thinking about things like that. There are more billionaires created in times of struggle. So I think for me, if there was one thing I want people to take out of this conversation that we're having, is that this is about where you choose to focus. Because if you get caught up in other people's stories, you can go down a rabbit hole and be not in a good place. Choose to focus in the other places and know you will be okay, but you can't do things the way that you've always done them.
I totally agree. And fear is your greatest enemy in these times. One of the kind of like little sayings that kept coming up for me in this last round. And I was teaching to my clients is like, follow the yeses, stop paying attention to the no's. Like if you follow the yeses and you keep looking for what's getting a yes, where is your energy getting a yes, where are people responding with a yes, there's a lot of clues in that. And that, I guess that brings me to the first, I think like the takeaway from this concept. This was a huge, I'm not going to use the word pivot. Are we going to say pivot today? Like,
I think that you can say pivot if that works.
We might reference pivot. Okay.
Yeah. I think
we were willing. We were almost going to banish pivot out of the language for a while there.
We were.
But so what I realized that didn't work in the first 2 times, and I got so much better at the 3rd time, was recognizing there's always opportunity in the problem. And I think this is also where the mindset comes in, is like, focus on the opportunity, not the problem. The opportunities that emerge is where you want to look at, okay, this right now, this is the problem everybody's experiencing. What is the thing that I do well, that I'm uniquely qualified to solve, or that my business already does, or if I just tweak a little bit, something that I'm doing, there is an opportunity that I can capitalize on, but also like we can leverage that opportunity and stay in motion, stay alive, stay connected. And like one of the things that I saw happening, you and I are both really active in the podcasting world. Well, we went from everybody going around to live events to everybody stuck in their homes, right? And audio products, audio platforms soared. The growth in the audio platforms went through the roof. Like there was Clubhouse, there's all this new social audio, but podcasts as a industry just took off. Everybody wanted one. People were listening to them more. And so those of us that leaned into that, it was already a part of my offerings, but I doubled down on podcast guesting and said, hey, now is the time to take all that energy that you were on the road with, and like going all these different events and going to networking meetings, go get on podcasts, get your message in the virtual world. So that was one of the ways that worked for me. I don't know what was working for you in finding opportunities and problems.
So the biggest opportunity for us last year was really sitting down very early in the pandemic, or early for where we were noticing our clients were really getting hurt as borders shut down, was how can we serve our clients even more to make sure they're okay? And that is where our genies were born. So in our business, our genies are our implementation team that helps our clients to implement all sorts of tech, the tech that coaches hate to implement. And that came about by us asking, what can we do to look after our customers? And to me, that is the biggest opportunity. And yes, we should be doing that all the time, but I guess we were in that pressure cooker of everything was happening all at once. And I just wanted to make sure that my clients weren't panicking, because there was so much going on in our personal lives and everything that was happening. So I think that is the biggest opportunity at times where people are really stressed. How can we take that stress, or what can we add, or how can we change to make sure that we're serving our audience in an even bigger way?
You said a couple things in there that I think is really brilliant to just hone in on. One was like, you noticed that people were starting to panic. And you stepped in and said, but we can solve that problem. And second thing is, one of the things I believe is, as entrepreneurs, when we stay the course and we get resourceful and we keep making money, we actually keep other people employed too. And I feel like you gave a lot of people jobs when you employ genies to serve your clients. And so you literally were creating your own economy and keeping an economy going. And that's exactly what I think some of us get into so much fear. We forget we can do this.
Absolutely. And it was a friend of mine that had mentioned this in a conversation a couple of years earlier. There's a lot of people in the coaching world that are like, I just want to run lean. I don't want a team. And we were having this particular conversation at one time. And he said, Sam, I kind of get where we're going, but how many people can we impact if we do employ people? And it was in that conversation that my mind shifted and went, actually, he's got a point. I'm all about creating impact. So what could I do to be able to do this. And you're exactly right. We have our own little mini economy that's working, that's feeding families all around the world. And to me, that's creating a massive impact.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I think I was joking around about the word pivot, but I think if we were to kind of have like a second pillar to this conversation, I think like really getting this concept of sometimes you have to pivot what you're doing to match what's relevant in the industry. And so I'll give an example of what this means to me is I think I saw a lot of my friends who are keynote speakers who made all their money on the road, right? And I was sitting in a room at an event as the world was closing down. Everybody's on their phones. We were in this private mastermind and I could see the faces because I happened to be facilitating. So I was really paying attention to everybody's faces, and they're like getting totally stressed out. And so our conversation moved to like what's happening, and people are going, oh my God, like events are closing right and left. All of my lifeblood comes from being on the road. What am I going to do? And in those moments, the people that pivoted and said, okay, I'm going to ride the virtual event horse. Like I'm going to reinvent myself right now. I'm going to do this or what that. Those are the people that thrived instead of like literally closed up shop and waited for it to roll over.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of it is like, we got to pay attention to what's relevant instead of stay overly attached to something, especially if finances are a bit of a challenge. You may need to change directions a little bit or remap your messaging and your offers to be more relevant to where your audience is looking for solutions.
I know
what are your thoughts on that?
I know you've used the word pivot, and I've got this tiny little tweak on that, because what I was seeing at the beginning of the pandemic is people pivoting, but completely pivoting. So if they were in speaking, all of a sudden they're trying to position their business in a whole new area. And I think that we've got to really stay in our own lane and really understand what's our zone of genius and what is it that, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, essentially. Yeah. So I feel that people need to do this all the time, is more realign. So where we've sort of got a little bit off course, it's like, okay, so how can we use exactly what we're doing, serve that same audience that we're really successful in serving, and how can we realign our services so that we come back into alignment with where we all are? Because I think definitely I understand what you're saying about pivot, and I agree with it at its core, but some people took that word and maybe sort of gave it a little bit more effort than it needed. That more realignment is kind of the idea.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit, because I think these are some good distinctions, because some people needed to pivot because their industry literally got destroyed, right? And then some people needed to realign. And maybe the core thread is what's relevant, right? Like what's relevant right now that's going to help bring you back into alignment with cash flow. But like, how would you decide if you needed to pivot or stay the course? Like what would be like a criteria for you?
I think first off, you have to look at where you are. If I was a cruise ship company, that I don't even know if I guess they didn't.
I might just shut down if I was a cruise ship company.
Yeah, I think I was going to say they didn't even pivot. They had to just park for a bit. So it probably wasn't the best idea.
Park, pivot, or reposition. Okay. Yeah, well, now we know what we do if we're going to park. Okay, got it.
Yeah, okay. So if you're a cruise ship company, just park. But I think it's really the relevance, exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. What is happening now? As leaders, we need to be the ones that step up and really look and really watch and pay attention to what's happening in our industry. In times of crisis, leaders have to stand up, not back down. We have to stand up and lead. So it's really about being one step ahead of everyone, because that's all you need to be. You only need one step to be one step ahead. And even if that's only a couple of hours ahead, depending on how quickly things are moving, it's just looking, okay, what's going on? It's constantly, I guess, surveying the landscape and saying, all right, well, what's happening? Where are we heading? What are our clients doing? Where are their struggles? And so I don't know that there's the first thing you have to do is this, and the second thing you have to do is this, because you have to feel your way through. This is soft skills. This isn't, what's your take on that?
Well, I was just like, the word mini pivot was coming to mind. So there was giant pivots. Like I saw some companies who maybe their production was not relevant. They shifted gears, like you were talking about, to making hand sanitizer, or, all of a sudden they were manufacturing masks or something like that. So that might be a big pivot, like literally changing out all your manufacturing lines to serve a current need that's super relevant. I saw some mini pivots, and I actually did a little mini pivot because I saw that people's buying behavior changed. So in the beginning, people were like, I'm doubling down. And then all of a sudden the fear kicked in of, we're here for a while. Like, what if my cash flow dries up? And so people's buying behaviors changed. But that people bought small things and people bought big things. So I took myself and many of my clients into VIP days, and I was selling VIP days like crazy. I was like, okay. So we have people who still make money and they still need things, and they are going to want to accelerate that because right now they need a new strategy, or they need to tighten up their strategy. So that, I guess maybe that's what I was seeing, is a lot of mini pivoting. Don't hold on to something that can't sell right now because it's not relevant. It's not the way people are buying, but be willing to take what works, like the essence of it, that alignment, and really recognize, like, how are people buying it right now, and maybe just shift the way you're trying to sell it, the way you're marketing it, so you can meet your buyers in their in their buying practices in that moment. So maybe that's a better word, is mini pivots.
Yeah, I like that. And I think you're talking about specifically selling our services to other people and sort of tightening down. And there's something that I learned very much in the first recession that we went through, is that this is the time to actually pay attention to yourself. This is not the time to get rid of mentors. It is not the time to stop marketing. It is not the time to leave your website and not touch anything. In actual fact, it is the time to really double down and make sure everything's in place, because when we come out of the other side, you need to have that momentum to take off. You don't want to be starting again and be overtaken by everyone else. And that's something that I definitely noticed the first time around, that it was the time where we doubled down and created the systems, or we doubled down and made sure that our marketing was really well in place to make sure that our sales didn't dry up during the tough times, but as we came out and times got better again, that things went really, really fast.
Yeah. I doubled down. I invested more in my business instead of investing less. Like, I was like, well, now's the time to get all the things realigned. Like we did our new branding. We did some kind of like streamlining of our offerings. Like, we used that time to invest in ourselves. So I love that. We should probably make that its own talking point. Like, I mean, I think that's a huge factor here.
Totally. Yeah. It's about being really resourceful in what you've got at the time.
Okay, let's talk about resourcefulness. I feel like this is our wrap up point, because none of this works if you're not resourceful. So resourceful can mean a lot of things. When I did my NLP training, one of the kind of like the buzzwords in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, for those of you that don't know what that is this idea of being resourceful. And resourceful means, like, no matter what's happening in your life, no matter what's happening in front of you, you are infinitely resourceful, and you can tap into support. You can tap into new thinking. You can tap into new habits. You can tap into anything you need if you keep your mind clear that you can have what you need. So for me, the thing that was like super big was support.
100%.
To me, the support, like, and I guess the sister to that would be collaborations. Collaborations were just like on fire, because we all wanted to like feel connected, even though we couldn't see each other in person. And I found the collaborative energy. So like there was so much passion and fire and excitement around it for people.
Totally. Because not only are we looking after ourselves, but we're looking after everyone else at the same time,
Yeah.
and helping each other. And I think that in times of uncertainty, that being able to, oh, what's that saying? A rising tide. No,
Tide, a rising
yeah,
tide lifts all
rising
the
tide lifts
boats.
all boats. Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's about. That's, when you're collaborating with other people, not only are you helping, but you're actually supporting too. So it's
Mhm.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. I love that quote, by the way. It's one of my favorite quotes because I think this is like the baseline of a mastermind is when
Hmm.
you are a rising tide and you bring all the other boats with you, everybody's winning together. But I think also, kind of going back to this conversation about really like going deeper into your own well-being, like I think in any challenging times, we have to start with ourselves and just decide that we have the capability, even if we don't know how. And I had a
Hmm.
lot of personal stories around this that I won't get into on this episode. I'll talk more about it. I'm doing the Create Your Own Economy, which you know about. And I'll be talking about that in the Facebook group because I think people think sometimes, oh yeah, like everybody has the same shtick. No, I lived it. Like I literally lived
Hmm.
this ability to say, I am not going to let the appearance of everything crashing around me dictate what I believe is possible. And so
Hmm.
I think like always going back to ourselves and saying, am I willing to be the person that can pull off anything? And
Hmm.
what do I need around me to support that? And so like you guys, like we're in a mastermind together, and like I had other pods of female leaders that we came together and just had each other's back and like cheered each other on. Sometimes just knowing you have somebody you can pick up the phone and say, I need to process this. Like I hired a new coach during that time. So I'm like, I'm not going to like fall apart. I'm going to like grow right now. And
Yes.
like I hired a very expensive mentor to help me get out of my own way and see what was possible if I couldn't see it for myself. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are some of the ways I tap into resourcefulness.
Totally. Having the people around you is absolutely essential. I couldn't do it without my inner circle of people that are there as my cheerleaders, as my sounding boards, as the people that say, Sam, stop being a wuss, give me a kick up the pants, but at the same time being there to say, actually, that is a lot. Like, maybe you need to take some time out and have some nurturing. And I think that's the power of having the right people around you.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to add to this, and you alluded to it a little earlier when you were talking about the how, is asking yourself the right questions. And I know that I've mentioned this in another episode, but I want to touch on it again because it's so important, is that asking ourselves how is the most unresourceful question that we could ask ourselves. That we need to ask our things like what questions or why questions, or my favorite, who. These are the kinds of questions to ask yourself to be able to get through a challenging time. Asking yourself how when you don't know what to do next is not going to help you.
I love this so much. Can I give an example real fast before we wrap
Oh,
up?
yes, please. I love examples.
Okay, so this is going to tie into something that we've been talking about a little bit here, is the Create Your Own Economy event. But I have to pull something together because this what and who is so powerful, and eliminating how, because
Hmm.
people get stuck on the how all the time. To me, how is the dream killer. It's
It
the
is.
profit. It's the profit like blocker.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
when last year when everything was going down, and I'm like, yeah, like we're going to soar no matter what, and I'm like, I want to do this with other people. So the collaborative energy was starting to kick in, and I had this inspired thought, like, what if we like banded together all of these entrepreneurs who are just live and breathe creating their own economy, and that's part of their value system and part of their energetic makeup. And so I said, who do I know that is living and breathing this every day? And I started reaching out. I didn't even know how I was going to pull it off yet, but I started
Mhm.
reaching out to people saying, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Like I want to pull a bunch of people and have everybody donate a product and give it away so that we can hold this energy for other entrepreneurs who maybe haven't fully adopted it yet, that we can create our own economy if we change the way we think and we really tune in the business practice to be able to thrive no matter what's going on around us. And so that was a little bit of how I did the who, because and what it was going to be, but I didn't have any how. Like, I didn't know how it was going to look, or I didn't know how it was going to come together. I just was trusting that this inspired thought had to come out. And now we're doing it again this year because it was so popular. Everybody's like, when are we doing it again? So
I know, that was me too. It was so good.
Thanks. I'm so glad you're doing it again. Yeah. So, Sam, I think we could go on and on about this, but let's give people a couple resources and next steps to really help bring this resourcefulness full circle and inspire people to like let's adopt this together. Like, remember, if we all do this together, we become a rising tide together. We can stimulate the economy. We can grow the economy. We can create any level of success. When we're doing it together, we're like a million times more momentum that carries us all forward. So if you want to check out Create Your Own Economy, it starts October 25th, goes through November 5th. We may be extending it a couple days, just fair warning. Create Your Own Economy event.com. We'll link that up in the show notes. You're going to tap into 22 proven resources that help people dial in all the components to thrive no matter what's going on around you. And you're going to get to meet some amazing mentors like Sam and myself and 20 others who are just living and breathing this every day. And they are infectious. They are powerful. They are amazing. They're extraordinary business mentors. And they're just giving during this 2-week period. So that's my resource. I'd inspire you to jump in on. Sam, like, what are you going to share? Like, maybe business genies or something else?
Oh, well, we talked about business genies last week. What I want to really suggest is that people do jump into Create Your Own Economy because it is so fantastic. I won't tell you exactly what my resource is, but if you want to attract clients next week, you might just want to get in on it. That's all I'll say. If you want new clients next week, jump in.
Quite a tease. Okay. Well, if you are loving these tips and you want to make sure that we stay connected, because we're going to go live every week, make sure you follow both myself and Sam on this platform or whatever platform you're listening to it. And we would love to hear an aha, an insight, a takeaway, or even a question that's emerged from what we talked about today. Just jump into the comments below and tell us what's on your mind. Tell us what you've heard and even something that you love about the show. So,
absolutely. And maybe tag a friend, tag your business bestie, tag your collaboration partners, tag your friends that you know that you want to help build your business together and collaborate. Thanks so much for joining us today for Next Level Influence, and we'll catch you next week.